Wave Healer Nation, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am fired up this morning. I just had the opportunity to recently view a brand new wrestling documentary all about a really hardcore, old school tour that happens in Canada still today. And I have the directors here with me, Stephan and Sonya. Guys, thank you so much for spending some time with us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
I want to get right into it. Tell us first off. This is a tour. I've been a wrestling fan since I was a kid, and I didn't realize that I didn't know a lot about this tour. I feel like I've heard it mentioned in passing on like Talk is Jericho and like some of the other podcasts out there. And I know I've heard of the name Tony. Tony Condello, I believe is what his name is. From who runs the tour, but tell us, how did you guys find out about this? How did you bring Chris Jericho on board, and what made you want to attack really just bringing this tour to the big screen and like letting the wrestling community know more about it?
Go ahead, Steph.
I was not much. Well, I was not a wrestling fan at all. Kind of growing up as a kid, but I did happen to kind of stumble across the tour maybe 5-6 years ago while up in one of these communities on another project. And yeah, they're taking us 3-4 days to get up to this particular town, crossing ice roads. And when we got up there, the last thing I expected to see was the traveling circus roll through town. And so, we bought a ticket, saw the show, and immediately knew that there was something special here. We had, the whole community had shown up, or at least, every kid from the community and the neighboring towns had shown up, and they were, fired up, throwing pop cans and coins and whatever at the wrestlers, and the wrestlers were these like full grown adults in spandex doing backflips and yelling at the kids and putting on the show of their lives. And then after the match, they were talking to the kids, and the kids were hugging them, and there was like a real connection between these two kind of communities that like I really knew not a ton about. And so upon getting home, weeks later, I found out that this was like a legendary tour, at least within Canada. And that's, big names that even I recognized as like a total outsider had done it. So, that's kind of the nexus of how this project started. And then Sonya came aboard.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of pro wrestling ever since I was a little kid. I love Stampede Wrestling. I wanted to grow up to be Bret Hart or marry into his family at least. But I had encountered the Death Tour when I was a kid, when I met Adam Copeland, who had stopped in my home community because he and Tony Condello and all the other wrestlers that were with him that trip either needed gas or had a breakdown. Because like my hometown, my reserve is the only stop for about 3 or 4 hours before you get up north. And so it was really cool for me to see like real life pro wrestlers. And so when I got asked to do this project, I was initially nervous just because I didn't know, because Steph is not a wrestling fan. I didn't know if he knew why they called it the Death Tour. And once he told me he knew why it was called that, the Death Tour, it was smooth sailing from there, because I knew I could work with him because he had this, even though he's not a wrestling fan, he had this love and appreciation for the sport. And so I was really taken by his enthusiasm for it. And plus, now that he and I have been on the tour, we're technically alumni as well. So like, even though we didn't wrestle, like, but like it feels cool to be an alumni of such a prestigious tour that includes people like Chris Jericho and like Adam Copeland and Christian Cage and all these great guys who like have made a name for themselves in the business. And like I think that's like something really cool for me as a wrestling fan to consider.
No, absolutely. And I think I was going to ask you guys, were you guys wrestling fans before? So I think that is great that you had the dichotomy and you had the yin yang of one of you is and one of you isn't. And I think that's beautiful that they came together. Tell us a little bit about, did you guys, when you were first starting this, did you have the vision in mind to end on the AEW match? Because I was kind of thinking the same thing. I was like, This is a tour, and I'm sure there are a lot more of these out there. This is a tour for like a professional wrestler, especially in the early days. If you want to prove it, like if you want to prove to yourself that you are mentally, physically, like if you have it, like if you're able to withstand this tour, and will you be able to make it as a wrestler? But then I'm looking at it and I'm watching it, and I'm like, you're just performing in front of a bunch of kids. But it's like you have to be able to connect to that audience because that's what you're going to be doing. If you're a wrestler, you know, you're bringing up the next generation. These are going to be your fans. Can you connect with them? Like you said, to a point of these are grown adults. And then on top of that, you have the mental and the physical breaking you. You're riding over lakes that have frozen, and there's potential for your car to fall into the lake. And it's cold. It's blistering cold, and you're away from your family. And you're doing this for months on end. And it's again, it's a small preview of what could be your life as a wrestler. So, did you guys have that in mind to end on that AEW match? Because it's like that was so exciting and inspiring to see that. It's like, wow, this has paid off, and this is where you could potentially go.
No, I mean, never in our wildest dreams, we thought we'd bookend it so beautifully. I mean, Sean had like dreamed of like maybe going to Japan. So the hopes was as the project evolved was like, maybe we would end somewhere like that. But you know what, Sage, the matriarch, Sage Morin, had always kind of told us early on during production that she's like, there's something special going on here. There's something magical. Everything's just kind of falling into place. And, throughout the whole filming of the film, happening, we just, the right people kind of came together and we caught the right moment and everything just really kind of unfolded organically. So when it happened, it was like, of course it did. It was the obvious ending. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I like how it ended. I'm surprised as well that it ended that way, just because like we got to see like how the fans in like God's River were very similar to the fans reacting in Winnipeg when we filmed with AEW, and it was also a huge deal for me to go backstage at AEW because like I was watching wrestling with Claudio, and like I got to say hi to John Moxley and like meet all these amazing wrestlers backstage, and it was hard for me not to mark out the whole time we were back there because like a lot of like the wrestling stuff that like was backstage with Wavell and the crew when they were setting up the card was a lot of the stuff we saw backstage at AEW, and so it was just cool to go from Death Tour God's River to AEW in Winnipeg, and it was like the same level of energy, just with a little bit more pyrotechnics.
Yeah, no, that's so awesome. I totally feel you, Sonya. I probably would have been the same way. But I wanted to get to this real quick because you touched on it a little bit. I really, really connected with the character of the matriarch. She is an amazing person. And it really, for people who aren't wrestling fans, if this is just a documentary or a story that you want to follow along, in the documentary, you'll see that she actually lost her son when he was really young. And I don't know, I'm almost getting emotional, like looking at it or just talking about it. But she continues to wrestle, and her son, and losing her son, inspires her to go out here and continue to do what she's doing, and to go on a tour like that just takes such an emotional drain on you. I mean, she could be sitting at home grieving, but yet she's out here. She's still smiling. She's still laughing. She's still good at what she does, and she's connecting with kids all around the world. And then to see the camaraderie between the wrestlers, you see some conversations between them, how they say, they're just going through like ring psychology and just talking to each other about how to get through matches, and what works and what doesn't. And then you see them thanking each other. It's like, hey, you're helping me get through this. Speak a little bit about the story and working with the characters, and just bringing that story to life, because I think it's so powerful, and I think that is the beauty of wrestling. To bring in different generations, and break down those barriers. Especially for you, Stephan, are you a little bit more of a wrestling fan now?
Definitely. I mean, I've definitely become a wrestling fan. Their stories all inspired me. Sage's obviously was incredibly moving. I'm a father myself. I have two young boys, so her story obviously moved me to no end there. And, we met her maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, before she headed out. And, what really resonated with or what was incredible about Sage's story was that she says it, she says it in an interview, but she'd always dreamt of having a large family, a huge family. But after the passing of her first son, she has two. She said the life had other plans for her. But then through wrestling, she eventually, she kind of found that large family in her wrestling. At her club, she works with Monster Pro Wrestling for Sean Dunster. He really kind of trained her, brought her up, and so I know they've become the family that she always dreamt of having. Same in the tour, and then same with the kids in these towns. So through speaking to all these wrestlers, whether it's the wrestlers who did this trip or all the wrestlers I spoke to, in the research for this project that, was like 4 or 5 years long, all of their stories really inspired me. It was really interesting how wrestling had this way of kind of like attracting people, these wounded birds who had found, for lack of a better term, who'd all, wrestling had kind of entered their lives in at a time where it, just brought them a lot of good. And but seeing how their dedication to this craft, a craft that it has no guarantee of a career or any kind of stability, seeing how dedicated they were to their passion was really inspiring. So in a very roundabout way to answer your question there, Justin, have I grown to love wrestling? Yeah, definitely. Not only is it like a fascinating craft to like once you kind of understand the inner workings, but yeah, no, I've definitely grown to love it.
Yeah, welcome to the family is what I was going to say. Guys, you're currently hitting the film festival circuits right now. I believe you may be at Sundance. But tell us about. Got you. Yes, tell us about what other festivals and where are you guys hitting. And then after that, is there any place we can find this on streaming eventually?
Well, I'm personally hoping, we haven't heard back from it yet, but I'm personally hoping that the film shows at Imaginative and Maoriland, which are the two biggest Indigenous film festivals in Canada and the world, basically. And that would be my dreams, just because I really was excited to combine my two favorite things, Indigenous content and wrestling. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they meshed so well, it was just as Sage had said, there's something about this, the filming of this tour that felt just right, and that the spirit was there and everything was working out. And so I'm just I'm hoping it gets to Imaginated. I remember Sage saying that was the tour, that was the film festival she would love to go to, just because it's our people, and the kids from God's River can get to that point and all that good stuff. So I'm hoping it goes there. But the film has already surpassed my own expectations, especially when we went to Con Docs in May, and doing Slam Dance next month is just anything else that happens is just icing on the cake for me.
And to answer your question, Justin, about where can we find it? I mean, it'll be on CBC in Canada, APTN, the Fight Network in the US, and we will. If you follow our social channels, as soon as we know more, everyone will know more. We're hoping to get this out internationally as soon as possible. So yeah.
Amazing. Guys, thank you so much. Hey, and quick shout out to Le Champion, Chris Jericho, for producing this. Man, after this interview, I will never be the same again. Guys, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Congratulations and good luck. I hope you have so much fun on this journey.
Thanks
a lot. Thanks for the time.
Wave Healing Nation, Tsunami Healing. We are out of here until the next episode.